Well, welcome to Betting Weekly Live. You're with Dan Roebuck alongside me, Will White. And over the course of the next half an hour or so, we will be talking our way through the Nations League card plus the World Cup qualifying slate in South America. Get your picks and your questions in as early as you can into our YouTube comments section, and we will endeavour to give you a shout out and to also give you our thoughts on your selections. And if you've been tailing us over the course of the last few days or week or so, let us know. And if you want to shout out on the show, you are more than welcome to. If you want to post your picks on your Twitter feed, your X feed, that's fine. And we will give you a shout out via that. Notable Monday winners I'm going to rattle through first of all. Hopefully, one or two of our viewers and listeners are on the right side of these. We had a $40,000 bet on the 49ers plus 2.5 on the handicap, minus 154, which won. That was against the Jets. Of course, we had France double chance, $30,000 wager, minus 476 against Belgium, which also won. And an RJ-esque bet on Lesotho, Morocco over 0.5 goals live in play at plus 117, which also won. But Bet Rivers, yes, they like to pay out, but they like to keep some of the money as well. They had a $17,000 bet on the Phillies minus 1.5 against the Rays, which lost, and also 49ers Jets under 43.5 points, which also lost. So the books managed to keep the cash on that occasion. Will, very good day to you. I don't know if you're the wrong side or right side of any plays over the course of the last few days. International break, is it good or bad for you? Do you like it?
It used to be something where I'd try and take some time off. But as I've started to study it more, I do feel like it can present opportunities. We're kind of at this halfway house in the Nations League between competitive football and glorified friendlies. So often you get some strange things happen with lineups and the matches in general. I was on the wrong side of a very unfair result, at least in my opinion, last night. I was on Montenegro plus 1/4 goal at home to Wales. Wales scored twice in the first 3 minutes, and Montenegro really went on to boss the rest of the game, losing 2-1. So that was my bad beat story from last night. I do see that we've already got Raymond in the chat, and he's mentioned the Hungary game. It's a very interesting game, and actually, there he is. Yeah, Hungary and over 1.5 goals, minus 108. I think that's a fantastic bet, actually. One of my leans was over 2.5 goals in that game, but I might even prefer Raymond's bet there. I really do like that. Bosnia are kind of on a downward spiral and tons of injuries at the back.
Yeah, we will talk pretty much about all of the games in the Nations League. We've got the South American World Cup qualifiers as well. Has anyone impressed you over the course of this first round of Nations League games? And I don't know how involved bettors get when it comes to futures with this. I mean, it's a look pretty good. 2 wins from 2. Portugal as well. It's an interesting one because people have looked at the Nations League and thought, well, do players really go for it? There's that motivational aspect that all bettors have got to try and think about. But when we saw Portugal last 10 minutes against Scotland, there is no doubt, Will, that a lot of these teams are taking this very, very seriously. If it was something else, if it was a friendly, you might not have seen that siege in Lisbon. And Portugal, of course, came from behind. I think they did trade just over even money late on in that game, and they came to win it 2-1. So it is a factor, isn't it, for a lot of these teams, a lot of these nations?
Yeah, for sure. I think the players themselves, I think it's hard to question their motivation levels, and maybe some countries more motivated than others. But in regards to who's impressed me, Dan, Georgia were very impressive, I think, winning 4-1 at home to the Czech Republic. Czech Republic minus 1/4 goal favourites there. And Georgia really took them to cleaners. Albania, same day, plus 3/4 goal away to Ukraine, winning 2-1 there. Netherlands, I think, were very impressive. We'll get onto them later. They were very impressive at home, completely obliterating Bosnia. Likewise, Germany. So, yeah, some impressive performances thus far.
Yeah, interesting. Albania and Georgia probably ranked 3 and 4 in that particular group, but it'll be interesting to see how they get on when it comes to match day 2, which is, of course, today for them. We're going to start with England against Finland. They're short price favourites. It's difficult, obviously, to get involved at something like the price that they are at the moment. They are minus 770 on the money line, the tie plus 900 against Finland, who trade 20-1 here. It's difficult to get excited on that. There's an awful lot of prop bets, of course, Will, that punters can get involved in here. I mean, I'm not quite sure if I took too much from that Ireland game, and people saying Lee Carsley has changed things a little bit. They move the ball a bit quicker. They look a little bit more expansive. I've always been one that England generally do the bare minimum. They don't always cover that 2.5 or 3 goal spread when it comes to the handicap line. What do you make of England and a bet potentially in this game against Finland?
I think if this had been in the Euros, we'd have to be all over Finland plus 2.25. But we're not in the Euros, and England looked to me pretty free-flowing against Ireland, and I actually like Bellingham out of the team. I know it's quite controversial, but I think Grealish playing there at the 10.
Is this not your Barcelona vibes coming into this a little
bit? Maybe there's a bit of bias. Maybe there is a bit of bias in there. Yeah, Steve. Yeah, Georgia, massively improving nation. Completely agree with that. But back to England, Finland. Yeah, England looked pretty good. The line is probably quite fair here. I think the main Asian line at 2.25. So I've kind of looked into the prop markets to find something for those that are inclined to bet things like shots on target and goal scorer markets. Normally not really my thing, but a couple of things jumped out to me. The first is Finland. Their main man these days seems to be Robin Lod for me. It used to be Teemu Pukki. Pukki's also involved in the squad here. Not sure if he'll start. But Robin Lod at plus 255 to have at least one shot on target is quite interesting to me. He averages 0.53 shots on target per 90 for Finland and 0.73 for club. Now, granted, a lot of that data is going to be taken from matches where Finland are facing inferior opponents to England. So they're likely to have an expected lower number of shots on target anyway in this game. But then Teemu Pukki himself, the archetypal fox in the box, he's the type of guy you want to be backing in shots on target markets. And if he starts, the plus 185 may be quite interesting also. So I think look out for team news here. If Pukki starts, maybe take a look at the plus 185. That's huge compared to the underlying data. And interestingly, prior to the Greece game, where Finland, granted, looked really, really poor, they have scored in their last 7 internationals. Only really Portugal was of the standard of England in that sample. But, you know, they are inclined to get on the score sheet. England aren't necessarily watertight at the back. And really, if you're getting plus 185 and some around that price on both teams to score, yes, I mean, you've kind of always got to look into prices like that. So, yeah, that would be my kind of framing of the match and how I'd look at it.
Harry Kane, of course, making his 100th appearance. He's got 66 in 99, hasn't he, at the moment? And there's going to be a lot of betting interest in that. I mean, I know that the over and under shots, I think the line is something like 4.5 just attempts, which is plus 132, under 4.5 minus 205. I think to score at any time is minus 134. Is it the type of game, do we think Lee Carsley will keep him on just to try and get a goal because it's his 100th cap, or will Lee go a bit all professional and pull him out sort of 60 minutes in if the job is done in terms of the scoreline?
I wouldn't like to try and predict Lee Carsley in that respect, but I did have a look at the Harry Kane prices, and they're not actually as kind of short on the overs as I expected. I think over 1.5 shots on target was a reasonable price, something like minus 135. I don't think that's a bad bet. Finland are really, really poor at the back. And Harry Kane will want to get on the score sheet. So either of those bets, I think the over 1.5 shots on target or the to score, both pretty reasonable bets.
Ming Chung says, thanks for the wins. Took Romania and Wilson receptions in the NFL. Keep your comments coming in. In terms of the other game in England's group, it's Ireland against Greece, of course. Vast majority of the games in the Nation League at 2:45 Eastern time, Group B2 for those interested. Ireland here plus 180. As you can see with the tie plus 188 and Greece plus 188. I always tend to overreact to these things. So I'm thinking Greece might be a play here, Will, off the back of a good result against Finland here. But you've gone the other way when it comes to this game.
Yeah, I think Republic of Ireland on a draw no bet line is just slightly too big. There has been money for Ireland overnight. There were plus money on the draw no bet overnight. But now we're looking at slight minus money. I just think there's not really that much difference in quality between the two squads. I think, yes, there's a lot of kind of there's a lot going on with the Irish national team at the moment, with the new manager who's come in but hasn't really taken charge yet, and so John O'Shea is still taking the press conferences, and lots of people argue that he's picking the team, and it's hard to really know when Hallgrimsson, is it Heima Hallgrimsson?
Yeah, Hallgrimsson, yeah.
When he's actually going to take the reins. He's had a 6-month period now to be looking at the players. Weirdly, I read that in his interview with the FAI, they actually asked him what he would have done to change at half-time in that 2-0 loss to Greece in October, was it? Yeah, so these two have played twice in the past year or so, and in the game, I think it was the game it was at the Aviva, I think, in Ireland. Ireland were down 2-0 at half-time, and the FIA asked Hallgrimsson in his interview retrospectively what he would have done to try and change the course of events in that game. And based upon that, he got the job. So here he is now. And I think, it's easy to look at this game and say Greece are in very good form. Ireland are looking a bit shambolic. They were very poor against England. They lost the 2 games against Greece in the previous qualification campaign. But if you look at the stats, particularly in the home game for Ireland, they shouldn't have really lost that game. And like I said, I don't think there's too much difference in quality between these two teams. Once you layer on top home advantage, I think Ireland should be small favourites here.
Just wanted to do big bets on those 2 games. Incidentally, England, we had $1,000 already on the money line at a short price, and also $900 and over 4.5 corners for England. Yeah, Nigel's 0-0 detector would be in complete meltdown for Ireland, Greece. It would be. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Although Bet Rivers have had 81% of the tickets and 75% of the money on overs, it would appear. I always tend to think international football is probably unders, but maybe there's some value in the overs there.
I don't know, Dan. I still think these days the bias when it comes to totals betting is predominantly for the overs. As human beings, we're not really conditioned to cheer on negative events. I mean, Nigel's he's got a bit of a fetish for doing that. So
he's an outlier.
Fair play. I can see how the 0-0 detector is going off here, and I wouldn't put anyone off betting the 0-0. What's the price on that, Dan? Do you know?
I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know, but I would have thought it's relatively short for a 0-0. I mean, I presume it's not double figures, is it? I would have thought. I'm guessing something like 8-9 to 1 or something.
No, it's shorter than that. Looks like it's plus 575, so 6 to 1.
Well, I mean, would you really want to get involved in a 0-0 draw at that sort of price? I mean, the answer surely is no.
one of the shorter 0-0s you'll find for sure. So probably not, but we'll let Nigel leave a comment regarding whether he'd get involved at that price.
Yeah. Cockney Gambler's gone. Any chance England, Finland to have loads of corners? Well, we've had England over 4.5 corners with a $900 bet on it. Cockney Gambler already. Corners is not your bag, I presume, Will.
Not really, no. But I guess you want to be looking at kind of the wingers, I guess, and kind of the fullbacks on both sides to see in what sort of areas of the pitch they like to play. Kind of the way I see this game is England will dominate possession, and so it's more about, I guess, Saka and Gordon and how they're likely to approach this Finnish backline. So, but I'm definitely not one to ask about corners.
Duncan says Ireland don't have any goal scorers in their squad. Unders definitely the bet in their game. Steve says plus 575, no goal scorer, of course, and then we avoid the own goal. That's always one to take into consideration. Best game of the night, Will, is probably Netherlands-Germany. Definitely Netherlands-Germany in terms of Europe, at least. Here, bit of money for the Dutch today, plus 150. I noticed there were bigger earlier today, although there has been some significant bets on Germany on the money line, $1,000 on plus 170, also $650 on under 8.5 total shots on target market at plus 148 here. The Dutch, of course, knocked out by England in the Euros. Germany beaten by Spain after extra time. I mean, they've played a few times recently. Historical stats might not mean for too much, but there is a significant rivalry here, Will, isn't there? It's a traditional one between Netherlands and Germany. You've got a bit of an angle in for us here.
Yeah, I don't know about Nigel's 0-0 radar alarm, but my ratings radar alarm was going off at this Germany price. I think it's a bit too big, but something is holding me back from pulling the trigger here at plus 180. So again, I've ventured into the prop markets, and there's an outlier here where I think his price doesn't make sense. And if you watch the Bosnia game, he was appearing consistently in advanced central areas of the pitch, getting in very dangerous positions, actually had 2 shots on target, scored, and he's plus 195 to get a shot on target here. It's Tijani Reinders. Again, I've gone back to the well with Tijani Reinders. He averages 0.74 shots on target per 90 for the Netherlands. And if you compare that with Xavi Simons, for example, much bigger name, a much more fashionable player, he only averages 0.57 shots on target per 90 for the Netherlands, despite playing in a much more advanced position. He's priced at Bet Rivers at minus 127, to have at least a shot on target. Yet Reinders is plus 195. That doesn't add up for me. And especially rewatching that Netherlands-Bosnia game and seeing number 14 consistently on the edge of the area, receiving the ball high up the pitch, making late runs and arriving in the box, I would not want to be laying him at plus 195 to have a shot on target here. I understand we're looking at a much higher caliber opponent here than Bosnia, but still, Germany can leak goals. And I quite fancy him. He had 2 shots on target against Bosnia. Yeah, it all comes together for me in this clash of the Group A2 Titans for Reinders to have at least a shot on target. It's the best bet I can see on the game. And plus 195, I mean, that's an implied 34% chance of it happening. I think it should be 40% plus.
The other game in the group, Hungary against Bosnia-Herzegovina, obviously both conceded 5 on match day 1 here. We've seen 1 or 2 of our viewers look at overs for Hungary here. They're minus 167 to win the game. Bosnia-Herzegovina at plus 480. Bosnia-Herzegovina with Sergej Barbares in charge, play 3, lost 3, although they have played some good teams. It might not be a particularly fair reflection on him. You've got a lean in this one for us, Will?
Yeah, it was over 2.5 goals straight at plus 100. And I know we had a comment from Raymond.
Yeah.
Was it? I think Raymond came in with the alternative Hungary and over 1.5 goals. I actually prefer that. I think this Bosnia defense, it's injury ravaged. It's very, very leaky. Hungary are impressive, especially at home. Bosnia allowed over 4 expected goals against Netherlands. I don't see how they right that ship in such a short period of time. And like I said, Hungary are a pretty good team. So, yeah, that does stand out to me as quite a good bet. You've got the 2 options there, the over 2.5 goals around even money, or at a similar price, Hungary to win the game and over 1.5 goals. I like both.
We are going to talk South American World Cup qualifiers shortly. Get your questions in as we go along. Just the other games in Europe that I want to mention briefly. Will, we've got Czech Republic against Ukraine here. Money line, 60% of the cash has come for Ukraine, which is interesting given that they seem to be out of sorts, and 86% of the tickets are on over in that game. And Albania, Georgia, again, we've seen quite a bit of activity with 51% of the money in Albania. And again, 90% of the tickets on the overs here for those 2 games. Any thoughts on Czech Republic, Ukraine, Albania, Georgia?
Yeah, I like all 4 teams actually from a betting perspective. I think Ukraine are overrated. You mentioned 69% or very high number of tickets were on them in that game. I quite like Czech Republic, to be honest with you. I think they're the more solid team. I think they're the more pragmatic team. They're playing at home, which is roughly 0.35 of a goal plus 0.4 of a goal home advantage when it comes to international competition. And Ukraine I just don't think they're as good as most people think they are. They're missing Dovbyk here. Mudrik's back in the squads.
Is that a plus?
I think it is. I think it is. Especially I think he's a different beast for Ukraine than he is for Chelsea.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair.
But yeah, I quite like Czech Republic here, and the price is borderline bettable. I think maybe look at the minus a quarter line. I think that's about plus 100. That would be on my radar, but haven't pulled the trigger yet. And then the other one, what was it?
Albania. Yeah,
Georgia.
the other one. What do you like in this one? Anything?
I like both teams. That's what I like in this one. I think both are underrated. I think both had good wins in the first round of fixtures. Georgia in particular are very good to watch, aren't they? And Albania with Aslani and Broja, and they've got some, and then a solid, predominantly Serie A backline. Two good teams, two underrated teams. I'm not sure. Is there a big rivalry there, Albania, Georgia? Sounds like it could be a rivalry, but maybe not.
Yeah, I think it might just be a rivalry and up and comers. The one thing that struck me about Georgia is that Mikatadze's had a pretty below average start to his club career in France with Lyon. Obviously, he moved from Metz, and off the back of winning the Golden Boot at the Euros, big fanfare going to a bigger club. And having started badly there, you tend to think he might find a bit of solace playing for the national team. I know he scored, didn't he, at the weekend? And I looked at the prices and I thought, well, Mikatadze at plus 260 anytime. Kvaratskhelia, obviously, on penalties, plus 195, a bit shorter. I might play Mikatadze. He just might feel a bit more at home playing for the national side, having struggled a little bit. Am I being unfair there in France so far?
I don't think you're really being unfair. I think I'm surprised to hear that Mikatadze is a bigger price, even though Kvaratskhelia is on penalties. I think he's another example of a player potentially as just a different beast when playing for the national team. And I'm surprised that he's a bigger price than Kvaratskhelia.
Ming Chung says, "Is it fair that the multi-match is a 1.5 goal line?" It's not a game that I've looked at at all.
No, neither have I. But I'm quickly going to have a look at it. Wow, that is the line. Oof, is that fair? It certainly looks like one of the lowest lines I've seen in quite a long time. And I am a contrarian at heart, so I'd have to be going overs or anything there at 1.5. But I don't really know much about either team. I do know that Teddy Tuma is important to Malta, and weirdly he gets in all of the squads but never seems to start. I think he might be an injury concern, so look out for him on the team sheet. If he's playing, maybe that means the over 1.5 is value. I don't really know.
We'll see. That's the European action. Plenty of World Cup qualifiers in South America. Really popular stateside. As we know, there's been a lot of money flying around for quite a few teams here. I mean, Argentina top the section at the minute. Bet Rivers have got future prices, incidentally, minus 335 to win the group, so to speak, the section, if you like, with Uruguay plus 600, Brazil 91. Brazil have had a shocking start, but they're a little bit better now. All the big names are going to qualify anyway because 6 go through, and there's a 7th via playoff as well. Is there any value with, I don't know, a team maybe grabbing 6 like Venezuela at plus 110, Chile plus 125? Can we see a nation maybe getting a top 6 finish that normally wouldn't? Is there a plus money play here? Venezuela, Chile, Paraguay, Peru, a plus 450 to finish in the top 6. Is that something you've looked at all?
I'm going to be honest, Dan, I haven't looked. Normally futures...
Who's impressed you of those teams that normally don't? I mean, Venezuela have never qualified for a World Cup finals.
Yeah, I did want to say Venezuela, but we'll get on to them. They had an interesting trip to Bolivia to play in the second highest stadium in the world at El Alto. Home of Always Ready. What a great name for a football club that is. Always Ready. I love some of these domestic Bolivian team names. But yeah, Venezuela probably. I think Paraguay are interesting. I don't know where they sit in the table and how far back they are. I mean, they're price
7th, 2 points behind Ecuador.
Okay, yeah, the price does seem to suggest that they're a big outsider, but plus 170 plus 175, top 6.
Yeah,
they've got some good players, Paraguay. I mean, you can discount Bolivia, right? So I guess we're talking 1 of or 2 of Venezuela, Chile, Paraguay,
something like
and
that.
Peru.
Yeah. I mean, I think Peru 10th are way behind Bolivia. I mean, maybe Paraguay's worth a punt. Venezuela, potentially they're 5th at the moment. Let's get into some of the games. We're going to rattle through the World Cup qualifiers that take place in South America. Colombia, Argentina, first of all, here. This is 4:30 Eastern. Argentina plus 180. Favourites just about. I can give you the prices on screen for you. There we go. So the favourites only just here, Will, for Argentina. Obviously, Messi is retired after the latest Copa America success, and Colombia having failed to make the previous World Cup. They seem fairly determined to right that wrong this time around. What do you think about that Colombia-Argentina game first up?
Yeah, well, replay of the Copa America final. Argentina took it 1-0 after extra time in a very, very closely contested match. Obviously, like you say, there's no Messi for Argentina here. We need to adjust our models considerably for that. There is obviously a lot of talent on this Argentina squad. A few kind of not injury doubts. They are going to make it. Guys like Alexis McAllister. I can't remember. There was one other as well, but it looks like he's going to make it. But, is he 100%? We don't know. I was hoping for a Colombia plus a quarter line here, to be honest. I would have piled into that. But we're looking at slight plus money on the draw no bet. I think that still might be okay. And I think Colombia could potentially get their revenge here.
Yeah, money line, 67% of the money, 70% of the tickets on Argentina, but there has been a $200 play on Colombia on the money line at plus 190. You mentioned Bolivia. I mean, that El Alto, I mean, they're usually playing La Paz, and they thought, hang on, we need a bit more of an advantage here. Let's go to El Alto, which is what, another sort of
650 meters. just 650 meters higher.
It's just incredible, isn't it? I mean, you look at that result, and did they win 4-0, beat Venezuela, and you think, oh, surely they might be worth a bet the next time out, and they're 10-1 shots to beat Chile.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same story for me with Bolivia in the South American qualifiers. Every time I will back them at home. There seem to be some big groups or strong flows of money that seem to take them on every home game, and I keep backing them every home game. And this game, when it was announced they were playing at El Alto, I was even more bullish. And a few of us at the Betting Weekly Studios had a chat offline about the game and concluded that Bolivia were huge value. And actually, the Bolivia coach in the press conference pre-match, when he was asked if he had a message for the Venezuelan coach and the Venezuelan contingent and team, he simply said, "Welcome to El Alto." And I think that said it all. The expression on his face said it.
Bring your oxygen tank.
Exactly. And it was a demolition, wasn't it? And I think the question when it comes to, I've forgotten, were we talking about the Venezuela-Uruguay match, or do you want to talk about the Chile-Bolivia match?
No, we can. Well, we were just talking about Bolivia. We can go on to Venezuela-Uruguay. What do you think here? Because this is a significant lean for you, isn't it? I mean, Uruguay under Bielsa, overs, but they're missing a lot of players for one reason or another. And potentially they are gettable against the Venezuela side. El Alto defeat aside, have done pretty well in the qualifiers.
Yeah. I think Venezuela are on an upward trajectory, and like you say, Uruguay aren't just missing a few here; they're absolutely decimated by injuries. I mean, potentially you could argue 7 or 8 of their first choice starting 11 are out here. Valverde is out. Luis Suarez obviously is out. Araujo is out. Darwin Nunez is out. Bentancur is out. De La Cruz is out. The list goes on. 13 players in total. It will be a largely second string Uruguay, and I think the step down or the downgrade from first choice Uruguay to second choice Uruguay is significant. I mean, those guys I just reeled off, their household names. Venezuela, upward trend, but how much will they suffer from that trip to El Alto? I suspect they will suffer quite a bit, and I'm not sure. That's why this is just a lean for me, basically. My lean is Venezuela plus a quarter of a goal. Maybe if it was plus half a goal, I would actually pull the trigger. But these teams, last time they played in Caracas, June 2021, Uruguay went off 3/4 of the goal favourite. So the line is shifted half a goal here, full half a goal, albeit in 3 years. And Venezuela have gotten significantly better since, and Uruguay are completely decimated by injuries. But that's a big move, even over a 3-year period of time. So yeah, it's just a lean for me. Venezuela plus a quarter.
That's Will's lean when it comes to the Venezuela-Uruguay game. Ming's been back on talking about Malta again, but they beat Andorra 3-1 in the Nations League. Overs maybe is the play. Just one other game that we haven't talked about really, that's Paraguay against Brazil. Brazil are -182, Paraguay are 6-1 shots. I mean, we know that they've suffered some poor results, haven't they, in qualifying? But I mean, they will make it there. And since Doroval has rocked up, I think they're unbeaten in 90 minutes as well. And as is the way, 99% of the money on the money line, 99% of the tickets on the money line, all for Brazil. And also on the overs as well. And overs is plus money. This is 2.5 plus 125, 76% of the money on overs and 65% of the tickets. Any view, Will, when it comes to Brazil? I mean, they are favourites to win the World Cup. We should mention that. I mean, they always are. They have to be. It's the law for some unknown reason. Any thoughts on Paraguay, Brazil?
I think the line looks about right. These are two teams that also played in the Copa America. Brazil were -1.25 goal favourites that day. Sorry, -1.5 goal favourites that day. They won 4-1. Quite a bit's changed since then, I guess, even though it's a short period of time. Brazil didn't look particularly good in that tournament. I think when you apply home field advantage, the line looks about right. My general strategy with Brazil is I expect all of the money to be on them, and I look for basically as higher odds as possible or as higher Asian handicap line as possible on their opponents. So we're currently looking at Brazil minus a goal here, or a little bit less than that, maybe -0.9 of a goal. If that gets to perhaps Paraguay plus 1.1 goals, so plus 120 on the +1 line, or -120 on the -1.25 Asian handicap, a +1.25 Asian handicap line, then I'd be looking to get involved. But I think Paraguay have some good players based in the Premier League. Julio Enciso, I don't know if he's still in the Premier. Is he still at Brighton and Enciso? Yeah. Julio Enciso, Almiron. They've got some good players, and I think Brazil are not convincing. Yeah, those are my thoughts.
That is Brazil away at Paraguay. There's sure to be lots of cash for Brazil, but it might be worth taking. Paraguay might be worth taking the overs plus 125. We shall see. There's been plenty of money around for that. Before we wrap things up, Will, you've given us a couple of bets. Just remind us of the two that you like when it comes to the Nations League qualifiers tonight.
I am actually going to... I'm going to pass the limelight on to Raymond because I think his bet usurps mine in the Hungary game. I really do like Hungary over 1.5 -108. So that's a bet of Raymond's that has become a bet of mine. I like Republic of Ireland on the draw no bet line. And there are a few players that I'm interested in on various shots on target markets. Tijani Renders for the Netherlands plus 180. Plus 195.
195, yeah.
And then maybe, just maybe, if they start for Finland against England, Robin Lodd, Teemu Pukki plus 255 and plus 185 respectively.
Yeah, two of Minnesota's finest there playing against England at Wembley tonight. And before you go, Will, one last thing. What are you going to play us out with on the piano?
Yeah, I knew at some point someone would point out my background. I think there was a cheeky comment from Nigel about the ivories. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, and let me tell you, that is I've been to Will's house, and that is his living room. He's got the grand piano there. Don't worry, you're an accomplished pianist.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. Moonlight Sonata all the way. I think it'd be if I were to go back there and play a little tune for their watchers, but nobody needs to hear me play the piano.
Never mind. Maybe next time. Will, enjoyed your company over the course of the last half an hour. That is a wrap for Betting Weekly Live. We will, of course, return tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern, with all the latest betting news and picks and plays. Make sure you join us there. From myself and Will, it is goodbye for now.